Hello, my name is Veronica, and thank you for joining me in the lab today. It promises to be filled with some howling good fun. I have to tell you, I have been having so much fun making these cute little box cards. Last year, my students and I made some for Mother's Day, and this year I decided to use some for my Halloween cards. And to be quite honest with you, it gave me an opportunity to use up all those little bits and pieces of stickers and whatnots that I always have left over when I do a scrapbook page. So come on in and let's get started. Now, because I knew I wanted to mass produce these, I created the basic box shape using the Cricut craft room, the Cricut fonts and basic shapes. And what I did was I just took that square and sized it to be the size that I wanted. So I didn't use a rectangle and then use the square. I used the square and resized it. And in a moment I will pop up the sizes of those shapes that I used to create this cute little box card. I did leave enough space in between using my y-axis so that I would get a cut line. Now, the biggest piece I'm moving off to the side is 2.597 inches by 9 inches. And the little square is 2.125 inches by 2.125 inches. And as I said, when I put those next to each other, I use my X and Y axis to make sure that they all fell in line so that everything would be nice and even. And then I took my large rectangle piece, pulled it back in with just a little bit hanging off the edge to help with the fold, and that became my basic shape. And that's what I just sent through my cutter to cut out. Now, I also created this on the personal one. If you have that, you would just lay it out the long way. And these are my struts that I created also using the craft room so that I wouldn't have to go back later and try to cut all those down to size. Now, what papers did I use to make this cute little box card? I tell you, it is so stinking adorable. I'm giddy with excitement, just in case you can't tell, but I love this paper. It was some that I found at Tuesday Morning. It's put out by Pebbles, but it was manufactured by American Crafts, and it's that nice double-sided paper that they love. This one is also Pebbles. Initially, I wanted to use these to create my box card, but I knew I'd have to make a much larger card, and I didn't want to do that, so I elected to go with the smaller size. Now, this back side is what I used as the tallest piece on my box card. And the papers that I used to line each tab, believe it or not, those all came from Die Cuts with a View, which I realized I have two paper pads from Die Cuts with a View that are pretty much identical. And those are the bats that I used. I needed more paper, and when I went back to get some, I actually picked up a different stack and realized that this wasn't the stack from which I initially selected my paper. It must have come from somewhere else because I couldn't find the same one. So if you have either of those, you can pretty much recreate exactly what I've done here. Now, when I pulled my paper off the Cricut mat, this is the way it comes out, already cut for me. So the only thing I need to do is score, and I'm using the Martha Stewart scoreboard. And what I did was I just put my paper down, I lined it up. Now I need to score going down the side. My cut edge is butted up against there, and I'm cutting at about 2 1/8 inches. And because my board's not long enough, I need to flip it, and I'm just lining up the score mark that I made on the previous one. And here I just found a groove on the scoreboard, lined it up, and that's where I'm going to score the tab, which needs to be folded. Now here I went ahead and did all my creases that I had made, and on this one I'm showing where I fold back all 4 of the pieces. On my initial ones I didn't. I formed the shape of my box, saw where the one that needed to stand up straight was going to be, which was opposite the tab, and I did not fold that down. And that was to give it some stability when it was standing up, although I did back it with another piece of card. Why I forgot that I did that on this one, I have no idea. And then I'm being so bold now as to really crease it down well. Will it ever stand up again? Who knows. But that other piece that I'm going to back it with is what's going to stabilize it. And so there's our box completely done. And now I just need to put some glue on the tabbed piece and put it together. Now I need 4 pieces to go on those squares, and I went back to the die cuts with a view stack and I cut actually 3 of those at 2 by 2 to go over there, and then to back the standing piece I did that at 2 by 4 5/8, I believe. I'm thinking that's what I did. I use my Scotch Quick Dry adhesive. Love that stuff. It really sticks down well, and it actually adds a little bit more stability to whatever paper you're gluing down. Now when you're putting these down, remember that once that flap comes down, if you are using pattern paper as I am, you're going to have to be aware which way your pattern is facing. So I did not want my bats quite upside down, although it's Halloween, so I laid them out prior to gluing them down on the paper. And if you're a newbie, when you're using liquid glue, you want to go close up to the edge but not right on the edge, because once you press down, a bit of glue is going to ooze out around the sides. Then once I had everything glued on, I did squeeze the box in both directions just to make sure I had that tab adhered down. Now I'm going to add in that back panel. And trying to do this on camera is a bit tricky because I really do need to see where I'm positioning it, but because I am using a liquid adhesive, I have just a little bit of time to wiggle it around if it's not quite where I wanted it to be. Now those panels need to be decorated, and I went into my Halloween stash, pulled out what I had, zipped into Michael's, bought a plethora of additional goodies. So for the standing panel on this one, I've decided to use the little Spooky Witch. She has a sticker and she has some layered dimensional on the spooky word. And because she does not entirely cover the panel, what I've done is poured out some of my cornstarch onto a paper napkin, gotten a Q-tip, and I'm just going to dip that Q-tip into the cornstarch and put that on the sticky parts of the witch, just so she doesn't keep my little pop-up card from popping up. And if you look, I'm going to have to press that out just a little bit because I didn't use the bone folder on those long pieces. I just, fold them by hand. Okay, now on to attaching some goodies to those panels. So I saw where Michael's had some of their Halloween stickers, stamps, papers, everything 70% off. So I dashed down to Michael's, hit the Recollections rack, and pretty much racked up. I'm using my scallop punch to punch out one of these, and that's so that the little black cat that I want to use will pop against the background of all of those bats and not just blend in so much. Some of them I did stick straight onto there, but this is just another option to use up some of those scraps of papers that you have. If you want to stamp next to the cat from your stash of stamps, feel free to do so. If you want to ink, feel free to do so. These were being quick and easy for me, so I didn't do that. I just let all of my stickers do the work. And here I just adorn him with a couple of candy corns from this K & Company sticker pack. Now this is a perfect opportunity to use up all those little bits and pieces that are too tiny for a scrapbook page, but they are perfect to look at each one of these as their own little decorating embellishment opportunities. And before you know it, your stash will have dwindled and you can go out and get some fresh new stuff. I attached everything with my Scotch Quick Dry adhesive, and because some of my stickers were a little bit older, I did put just a little bit of glue onto the back to make sure they adhered well to my panels. To create my struts that are going inside of the box, I took some of my leftover card, cut it to 1 inch wide and 3 inches in length, and I put that on the scoreboard, and I initially scored at 2.5 and a half on the other side, but that was too small. So I did 1/4 on one side and then a half on the other side. These were going interior. It really didn't matter to me if they were the same length or not. If that bothers you, please cut them to 4 inches and then you can get it perfect. But I used my, again, Scotch quick dry adhesive on that and press those down in the interior of the box. Once I got both of those in place, I again flattened the box out to make sure they were adhering well, and that was it. Now I'm ready to add my additional embellishments to the card. And these I racked up on at the Recollections rack at Michael's. So I'm using these adorable little mummies. Again, removing the adhesive to the top part of them using that starch that I have. Certainly not using it for cooking, so I might as well bring that into my craft room. Now for the one in the front, I want to use some cute little bats that I have, and their little eyes are so wiggly there, and I applied this starch to the top of those, and then I'm putting the glue to the bottom, and he's just going to barely peek above. I thought that was cute. It was almost like a stair step and just gave it just a little bit more layer to it. I love this. It is so cute. This is the adorable little card. As you can see, it folds flat to go into your envelope. I hope my recipients are going to be happy receiving it, because inside of each one I plan to insert a scratch off for them. So hopefully someone will be a big winner. Thank you for joining me in the lab today, and I hope you had some spooky good fun. Please be sure to check out my blog at inkallusions.blogspot.com. Happy Halloween!